who are we? We are a local meetup group in Fort Collins. We just kind of get together to talk about Bitcoin and memes and kind of what's going on in the space. Really a bit of a support group because, the market, it tends to go up and down a lot, and, it can be an emotional roller coaster. So, we're here to help Fort Collins in Northern Colorado kind of grow in the Bitcoin space. So I just have this slide here just to be like, everything I'm talking about today is like technical advice. If you want financial advice, go to Edward Jones, go to some broker, manager, money manager, someone who you can tell them, here's my money, take care of it for me. I don't want to think about it. Okay. So you can do that. That's perfectly acceptable. We're mostly talking about technical stuff and what it means to be, in Bitcoin. So, don't look at me when you put a bunch of money in and then you panic sell when it drops 20% and you lost your money. That's totally your fault. So one thing that is extremely important to understand is that nobody really knows every single piece of this thing that is Bitcoin. The developers that work on it, most of them touch individual pieces of it. The guy who released it, Satoshi Nakamoto, was anonymous and was most likely a group of people who put this thing together, right? This wasn't like one person just threw this out there one day out of his head, okay? There's many, many parts to this, and that's, part of what this group is about, is we get together to kind of explain all these different things that are Bitcoin and how it works to each other, because, it really helps to kind of learn together. So we don't want people to be afraid to ask stupid questions. We want people to come here and feel safe. So, that is always acceptable to ask a stupid question, or, you want to talk about whatever altcoin or whatever project, okay, great. We'll give you some time to talk about that. We're not going to be rude or disrespectful to people who want to talk about, their altcoin flavor of the month, but understand the ultimate goal here is, much bigger than short-term cash money. So what is it? So what are we talking about here? Again, like that kind of analogy of, I could be looking at an elephant's tail and think it's a rope. You could be looking at the horn, the ivory, the trunk, that area. I think it's a snake. So there's all kind of perspectives, and we all see through this keyhole over here a little differently and have our unique perspective on things. So, you may be an economist or, software developer, right? You may have a very different perspective on this thing. And that's kind of why we get together to talk about it. So if you really want to understand Bitcoin, you kind of need to understand that money is an evolutionary technology, okay? So money has never been static, okay? The cash that we carry around, the credit cards that we use, that is the newest form of money. And then actually Bitcoin is even newer, but money has taken many forms over the years, including, kind of what we see here today, which are things like rhinestones, these big stones on the left here. Those were used by, these tribal societies to kind of measure the wealth of their families. And the more of those you had, the more wealthy you were. You might trade around the small ones, but you mostly kept the big ones as sort of tokens of how wealthy you were. Seashells, beads, and then, of course, gold and silver is sort of like where civilization kind of came to great wealth, was when we were using silver and gold based currencies. It's sort of like the period between, 2000 AD and today. We're doing things much differently. But if you go back the last 10,000 years, pretty much, there's records of people using gold and silver as base money for their system. So gold was still money for a long time, and still is considered money by a lot of people. Our currency, one thing I love to show people is these silver dollars, right? So one of these silver dollars on the left here, whether it's a Morgan dollar or a Peace dollar, those are worth about $30 on the market now. So you have something that is engraved by the United States Mint to say $1, but and I'll give you $1 for one if you have one, but those fetch quite a hefty premium on that dollar value that's written on there. Same with this $1.50 euro coin, or 150 euro coin. $20, these gold-backed currencies used to be prevalent in our society, and now they are all gone. We went off the gold standard in 1971. As you can see here, this has been a slow decline of the US dollar over time and its purchasing power. And really, this is going on at a greater scale. Even today, we can see with COVID and the government reactions to that and the money printing. Basically, it's been the slow demise of the US dollar since its inception. But really, these main events here, the Federal Reserve being created, the executive order that made it illegal to hold gold bullion or certificates, the Bretton Woods Agreement that established the US dollar as the world reserve currency, and then, of course, when Nixon took us officially off the gold standard in 1971, promising that we would return to it someday. Extremely unlikely at this point, although maybe there's hope for that. What's really most likely to happen here is some sort of hyperinflation, as our money is a system of government monopoly. And so what is money, right? So that's kind of a slow walkthrough of it, right? We had basically 25,000 years of commodity money, 5,000 years or more of metallic money, and then 500 years of sort of government money that was backed by gold. And now in the past 100 years or so, we're talking about a currency that is purely backed by government. There is no intrinsic quote unquote value of our US dollars. They are printed at will by a centralized organization. So it's important to kind of understand that as we look at the evolution of money and then how Bitcoin evolved. So there seems to be a very prescient timeline here with sort of the prehistory of Bitcoin, and then how Bitcoin came to be in 2008. But what I like to think of here is that it's sort of like when we went off the gold standard, all of these things started a chain reaction to bring Bitcoin into existence. Okay, so I'm not the smartest light bulb in the light bulb drawer, and I can't tell you exactly how all of these individual things work, but you can definitely see that Bitcoin is not a standalone technology. All of these things are required to have Bitcoin come to be, and in fact, Bitcoin is not the first version of kind of what we're talking about. This Liberty Reserve that you see here, the DigiCash. And there has been other things like eGold and other kind of attempts at something like Bitcoin before Bitcoin came along. So, oftentimes you'll hear people say how something is the next Bitcoin. And I always like to say, well, no, like Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin because it was the next DigiCash or whatever thing that it took over from. So definitely important to remember that. All of this is sort of an evolution, right? So money is an evolution of how we kind of store value over time. So that evolution has led us to Bitcoin. Okay. And Bitcoin truly is better money. And it's hard for a lot of people to wrap their heads around this, because for them, if they can't go spend it at McDonald's, then it's not money. Well, I can assure you that the time that you can just go spend your Bitcoin at McDonald's is definitely coming, but that's not really the path that we're going to take to get there. It has to take hold as a store of value first, as we, basically take a hold of the central banking cartel and allow for people to have a place to store their wealth. That is the real Trojan horse here. And basically, anytime someone is out there and they can just print an infinity of something, well, the rest of the things that exist out there are going to increase their relation to that. It's just, again, you don't have to be a math genius to kind of understand these underlying principles. So I do think that, it's important to realize this isn't just all, propaganda, right? This is actually code that exists, and Bitcoin absolutely cannot be debased. Okay. So, there's sort of a whole process here that makes it what it is. And though not, like I mentioned earlier, not everyone understands maybe every single piece of the puzzle, there's a basic concept here, right? Like we have a mining economy, right? Is that they use their CPU and computing and energy power to generate Bitcoins. And so the Bitcoins are created from this process. And there is a fixed supply of those. So the amount of those that are coming out of the miners gets reduced over a set time period. But in theory, the miners are here. They're pulling the Bitcoin out, and they're trading it away at exchanges to cover their energy costs or the rental costs on their facilities. And so now you have a whole other economy that is built just from the fact that Bitcoin mining exists, and competition around how to build the best possible Bitcoin miners. And an entire industry has sprouted up around Bitcoin mining with application-specific integrated circuits, or ASIC mining computers. So this is one way that an economy has sprouted up completely around Bitcoin, separate from the rest of the world. And so not only do you have this competition to build and mine with miners, you then have the competition in the free market to trade Bitcoin for fiat currency. And so that's another market that happens. And individuals and businesses, you don't need any credentials to create a Bitcoin wallet. It's a free open source tool. You don't need a hardware wallet or fancy thing like that. There's absolutely ways that you could just generate a private key. It may be a little less safe, but you absolutely can have a zero cost, pretty much, entry into getting a wallet and starting your own business and receiving Bitcoin for goods and services. So, the cryptography that secures the network here, this is the same cryptography that, it secures your banking information and every secure transaction on Earth. So it is pretty much unbreakable, although, you don't ever want to say anything with 100% certainty in the field of cryptography or cybersecurity. It is, you can generally rest assured that the cryptography is probably one of the least of your worries when you're starting to learn about Bitcoin and the newest money that's out there. So all of these kind of things here, fungibility, hardness, portability, durability, divisibility. One thing on here that people like to say is, well, it's not government issued, right? It's not government issued. That's the one thing that Bitcoin, the dollar is government backed. And sure, yeah, if that's something that's important to you as a use case for money, then I recommend keeping your dollars, right? But for a lot of folks, that's just not necessarily the most important thing to them. They would rather have money that is censorship resistant. Maybe they're attracted to the smart contracts available with Bitcoin and the other interesting technology. But really, what brings my interest to it is this scarcity, right? So the fact that there is a predictable supply is how we know as Bitcoiners. We don't think, we don't hope. We pretty much know that over time, because of this scarcity in our digital money, it will help us to balance the scales of fiat currency printing. And so that's attractive to me personally. Like, I like having US dollars, but I've found that they tend to burn a hole in my pocket, and I want to go spend them on other things. And Bitcoin has sort of taught me a higher time preference for money. In fact, I was never good at saving or accumulating wealth until I really started learning about Bitcoin and the high time preference or low time preference, depending on how you look at it, of holding something for an extended period of time and risking these turbulent volatility. So that doesn't really exist for a lot of people as far as having somewhere to put their money that it will grow. We do have traditional markets. We have the stock market. We have things like that. But again, you're always dealing with some kind of middleman. You're holding your stock on an exchange somewhere. With Bitcoin, I can hold this asset in my mind, and it belongs only to me. So where else can I hold it? So there's, how do I hold Bitcoin in my mind, right? So these 12 words up here, and most wallets will recommend 24 words, but these 12 words right here can derive a Bitcoin wallet private key. So this number here is a Bitcoin private key, and basically this key can unlock any coins that are sent to this public key. Okay, so the private key in this case, it could be derived from these words, and the words are a standard. It's called BIP39. It's a Bitcoin improvement protocol. So the software is constantly updated, and we can talk more about how that works. But this improvement protocol allows you to derive your private key from words that you could literally just store in your mind and no one else knows what they are. And so you don't need to smuggle a USB stick in your, however you might choose to do that to get into some place. You could literally just, have this in your head, and you could have millions of dollars on it. So the advantages versus, millions of dollars of gold, I think, is immediately obvious to anyone who, even if you just own an ounce or two of gold, you'll understand that the practicality of moving millions of dollars of that asset would be completely ridiculous. So, Bitcoin has a lot of advantages there. And there's a lot of growing technology space in this area. On the bottom right, you kind of have the sleek Ledger wallet that is, one of the higher end devices that you can use to manage your keys right now. You have a steel plate where you could, that crypto steel there, you could store your 24 words in that. And again, when you have the high time preference that the Bitcoiners tend to, where, I'm looking at holding on to my coins until my daughter is ready to go graduate from college, maybe. And so if I put that on a steel plate like that and I go bury it somewhere, then I'm pretty much good. I know that no one's going to find it. I know, it's going to sustain the elements. Maybe you do a little something to keep it in so it doesn't rust too poorly. But there's a lot of fun technology around this and things that kind of people think of that allow Bitcoin to take on sort of its own mind of its own, really. So why should you commit to some of your time or hard-earned money into this system? I think this tweet on the right kind of speaks what I think. There's a lot of delusional utopian people in this space who think that they're going to change the world, and you know what? It's also possible that those people are right. Okay, so if that's the case, I think that you may want to listen to some of the people in this space who have been here for 10 or 12 years and are now some of the wealthiest people on earth. There is an obvious economic value here. But we also understand the fear. It seems like if I buy this coin, it goes down. And if I sell it, it goes up. If there's no rhyme or reason to these daily price action, and I feel like I'm going crazy. And you have to understand that Bitcoin is still a nascent technology. It's very early, and it sounds crazy to say that because people are like, "No, come on, it's the flavor. This other coin is going to take." No, this is a new form of money, and it is still extremely early in its adoption curve. Yes, many people have cashed out and become Bitcoin millionaires. It's hilarious because many of those Bitcoin millionaires would be Bitcoin billionaires if they were still holding on to their coins. Many of them sold their coins for a Lamborghini or a mansion, maybe in 2013, when if they had held until now, they could be buying, countries and things like that. So it's just a wild ride. You want to understand, you want to have people to talk to. So come to our group and talk to us about it. Don't worry about the emotional roller coaster, because we can show you ways to do this without feeling like you're taking on a mountain of risk, or endangering your family's future by investing in risky assets. Nobody wants you to look like this guy at 21, right? So we're going to run through some strategies, kind of how to make sure that you're getting outside, you're getting exercise, you're not staring at charts all day. The main thing is you just want to get some skin in the game. No one can be told what Bitcoin is. It really is it's a funny thing. And I learned this about investing, through Bitcoin. But all the big investors will say things like, this is something Warren Buffett said, right? So owning Apple Computer stock is a way that he learns about the company, right? And owning Apple stock and owning a Apple computer are two different ways that you can get to know a company. It's a very different relationship. And you can definitely go down the rabbit hole and learn as much as you can on the technical side of Bitcoin, and feel like you really master the fundamentals of how it works, the system. But I'm telling you, if you don't have $10 in a wallet somewhere, there's just something that you're going to miss out on that you're not really going to know about. It's a strange phenomenon. Many will argue with me, but that's kind of why I started the group, so I could talk about my crazy theories like that. Again, I really want to stress this high time frame. Do not think this is get rich quick stuff. We're not talking about that. I'm not talking about the next 6 months. We can talk about that in this group. We certainly speculate on what we think this cycle is going to look like in the next few months. But ultimately, this is the long game. I want to give my family the gift of total financial security someday. Right now, I'm still hustling and struggling and trying to accumulate Bitcoin and other things of economic value, so that I can say that I did everything I did for my offspring, and that's really what money used to be about, until we sort of got sucked into the fiat and debt driven cycles that we're in now. Generational wealth is one of those things I never really thought was possible for me or my offspring until I discovered Bitcoin. And there's other ways to do it. So, don't sit here and think that this is some mid-level marketing thing. You want to go make your money in selling knives door to door, or, there's many ways to make money in the markets with stock options, and ways to gamble in the markets that I'm sure you can be profitable in. This is something else entirely than what it is purported on, I believe, in sort of the mainstream media and things like that. Nobody here is trying to sell you anything. Bitcoiners, generally, what we're trying to do is warn you that the US dollars in your pocket are inflating and losing their value over the cost of other goods, and that there is a way out. And this can be that, right? So, for me, the main use case or scenario for Bitcoin is to combat inflation, and it's a slow game. So I just really, really want to emphasize that. Again, you can see here the Bitcoin price has already run up quite a bit in this latest run, this cycle that we're in. So you always want to use cost basis analysis and risk analysis, and think about what you're doing as you enter these markets. It's entirely possible. This this is from a few months ago where Bitcoin was only about 33. This is actually up here now, right? So we've definitely had a run up. And understand that the market, we talk about the supply curve and the demand, supply and demand, and that's how price is established. Well, really, I don't know. I mean, the market can do anything at any time, and it can say, I feel this way about something today, and then tomorrow it's gone and we don't care about it anymore. So exercise caution, understand, are you a Keynesian economist? Are you an Austrian economist? Do you know what the difference in those two sort of philosophies is? Do you understand what a market bubble looks like, right? So we obviously had a bubble here in sort of 2017, 2018, right? And it looks like we might be in a bubble now. If we, we hear that all the time, Bitcoin is a bubble. Well, okay. Well, what if Bitcoin being in a bubble is actually a good thing for Bitcoin? Okay. So we want to talk about dollar cost averaging, okay? Because Bitcoin actually uses bubbles as a go-to-market strategy. Okay, this is not my research. This is from a company called Paradigm Investing. Again, none of this that we're talking about today is at all financial advice or anything like that. We're just here to talk technical stuff. But you can see like the idea behind this is like we're talking about a new kind of money. Okay, so the only way for this thing to get hype, it's not a video game. Well, for some people who gamble a lot and play options and leverage, and it can be a game and that sort of thing. But this isn't Call of Duty, right? They're not going to put out ads for sit around and watch the Bitcoin price all day. Although I find it entertaining, most people probably find it as dull as watching paint dry. It can get exciting sometimes, and the way they do that is basically through these hype cycles. And I think when the protocol was designed, they understood that price action is pretty much the dominant way that this game is played. Okay, and if you believe in this technology, if you think that it's worth something no matter what, you're buying it when it's in these dips, when it's in the bottom here during the bear market. I was excited in 2018, 2019. I was buying because I thought, 2017, I was going to have to pay, 20 grand or more for the rest of my life for a Bitcoin. And suddenly in 2018 and 2019, I had the opportunity to buy Bitcoin for under $10,000 again, right? So the bear markets should be seen as a gift, and understanding them is critical. The importance of kind of gathering those believers, the buyers of last resort, as they're called, that are literally setting a price floor. Okay, and so that price floor begins to get eaten up, and it gains media attention. There's a hype cycle. People get excited. People who don't know what Bitcoin is, people who don't bother to come to meetups like this and learn and invest the time into the research of what it is they're buying. They buy at 17,000, and they're not like me. When it drops to 10,000, they're not buying more. No, they're selling because they're like, I knew I got scammed by a mid-level marketing thing. Like we all know the shame of losing money in some way or another. Okay, everyone in their life has lost money in some way or the other. But the thing is, really, in the Bitcoin system, like if you've bought at any point in the history at this point, you are a net positive, unless you're like me and you bought a little at 60,000, 61,000 when it was up there, because I don't care. Those coins that I bought are currently sitting negative. If you can't stomach, a 60 or 70% drawback of the money you're putting in, then you're definitely investing way too much into something you don't understand. Okay, so that's definitely something we want to stress. This dollar cost averaging strategy. If you're putting $10 in through this entire thing here, okay, that's like you would be sitting on like quite a bit of money here. So say this is 2017, right? And 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Let's say you put $500 in over that time like this. Your average price is still going to be under this now because we're all the way up here. Okay, so and if it drops down again, if you panic sell for a loss, then that's that's kind of, the classic thing that we do see with a lot of people who have turned very negatively on Bitcoin. Or, I had a conversation with a gentleman the other day who told me he bought in 2017 and those coins are still worthless. And come to find out, he was talking about XRP or some altcoin, and he calls it all Bitcoin. It's like he went on to his website and he was buying Bitcoin, but he was really buying altcoins. So, doing your research, understanding what it is. I cannot stress enough. If you want a stress-free way of investing in really any asset, use some kind of strategy like this with your time, and don't overdo it, right? So there's a lot of platforms out there to buy Bitcoin. These are the ones that the people in this group here in Fort Collins, that I've talked to, are the most familiar with. I actually was not using Swan until, I'd heard about it online, and then I met Ken, and he told me he'd been using it. So I was like, well, heck. I mean, it sounds, I heard about it, but when you meet someone in person and they're like, yeah, no, I'm using this product, I think it's good, it just kind of helps. I mean, that's part of the reason why this group exists. So we can give each other that trust, that verification that the stuff that we're hearing online is actually accurate, right? Cash App is great. Bitcoin or Coinbase is good. This bottom right app. The thing with Coinbase, just understand, like they have all these altcoins and they're trying to suck you into the crypto kitties and the world of ether and all these things that, we talk about these things a lot in this group. I don't want to spend tonight talking about Bitcoin versus altcoins, but it's a never ending conversation that you're definitely welcome to come and argue with us about it, and talk about your favorite altcoin, and we can tell you why you're wrong. So this is how most people do it, okay? And keep in mind that I'm talking about how you spend your time here. Think about your cash, right? Think about Bitcoin with 1% of your investment time. Think about Bitcoin for 10% of your investment time. Keep your mind on that cash dollar system, the fiat dollar system that we're in. I definitely recommend, even if you are a hardcore Bitcoiner, if you live in the United States, if you live in Fort Collins, I can tell you it's not actually easy to go around and just spend Bitcoin at places. I think there's like 2 places in Fort Collins that actually accept Bitcoin or will let you pay for things. So, understand that it's still very much a bearer asset. I'll accept Bitcoin for my services if you want to pay me for kind of showing you guys this tonight. But I know a lot of people are still kind of on the fence about that. My main thing is the reason I don't want to spend my Bitcoin is because I know it's going to go up in value. So why would I go somewhere and trade it for a cup of coffee when I could just use a credit card and pay that off, right? So there's sort of this, there's sort of hypocrisy embedded in the system, and we recognize that. Nothing I'm saying is really financial advice. I just think you should spend some time thinking about these various sections of things, like how does the US dollar work? Well, as you go through your Bitcoin journey, you're going to spend less time worrying about how the US dollar works and more time worrying about how Bitcoin works, how to secure your coins, how to maybe get some extra Bitcoin here and there. You'll be worried less and less about how the dollar works or about getting dollars. It's just sort of one of these things where the more you buy in, the more Bitcoin becomes important and the less US dollars become important. Same here, right? So again, this is about time preference. I'm not talking about where you put your money today. I'm talking about where you put your time. Okay. And I personally think, for me, I've come more and more into wanting to spend most of my time thinking about Bitcoin, thinking about holding Bitcoin, and what that actually means and the implications of Bitcoin. I still think about Ethereum, altcoins, and lately NFTs, because those are kind of the hotness, the new fad that's going around the sort of crypto space. But I really am hesitant about NFTs. I bought some crypto kitties in 2017 and I lost whatever hardware wallet they were on, or whatever thing that was not important because it was just a crypto kitty address. So, it just came to realize that those kinds of things are not really what I'm going for in this experience, and going down the rabbit hole and learning. But yeah, I know a lot of people, they want to spend most of their time on Ethereum, or most of their time talking about trading or NFTs. Look, that's up to you. We welcome you to come to this group and talk to us. I'm mostly interested in Bitcoin, public-private key encryption, proof of work, the blockchain, the triple ledger accounting that kind of revolutionizes our monetary system, that is Bitcoin. So a lot of people, like, okay, well, you got me. I bought a little Bitcoin. What do I do with it now? And it's like, well, you learn, right? You come to the meetups, we talk about it. We slowly all, gain accumulative wealth together. And you can also, once you sort of join up, right, with the Bitcoiners, you start to see everywhere these obituaries and people talking smack about Bitcoin, saying it's going to go to zero, saying it's going to melt the ocean, it's going to destroy the earth. And you start to counteract all this information warfare that's going on against, really, a currency that provides freedom and liberty to people, all over the world. There's governments that are printing money way worse than our government is. I mean, I know we like to kind of meme about, the trillions of dollars that the US is printing, but in Zimbabwe a few years ago, there was a $1 trillion bill note that was printed, and there was billionaires who were, using wheelbarrows full of cash to pay for things like basic necessities like toilet paper and stuff like that. So, this is actually a human rights money, and really, when you start to get into the activism of it, and understanding what we're talking about, it's really fun to watch people hate on Bitcoin, and then later on FOMO in at the top, and then they hate it again at the bottom when they sold and lost money. I mean, this is a never-ending cycle. So, again, like, if you just buy and hold Bitcoin, you're probably good, right? So it's really been a tried and true method, if you've done it, but many have not. And so, I do recommend, you have a plan, okay, and you stick to your plan. If you buy some Bitcoin and you put a little bit of money in it and it goes up 100%, and you want to take out your initial investment because that's one of your investment plans, you should do that, right? Like, you should stick to your plan. Again, like, we're not telling you how to spend your money. I recommend learning about the technology, buying a hardware wallet, transferring some Bitcoin to it, maybe learning how to run your own node, and learn about the Lightning Network and the things that are happening with Bitcoin right now that are really going to transform our economic system. Stick to your plan. Don't listen to anybody, really. Don't listen to me. Double check everything I tell you. Go look at, the open source information that is available. Bitcoin's entire source code is freely available. It is open source software. So that's one of the key things that I recommend to people, is always do your own research. Trust but verify. This information is available in our Slack channel that we have as part of the meetup group. So if you go and you join the meetup group, there should be a Slack invite. It may be expired, and I can send you another invite. But if you get in there, we have a whole media resources section. But there's hundreds of resources that we've posted, and most of them have been vetted by the locals here to be, at least, we think they're accurate. But yeah, so that's really pretty much it. I tried to present a sane approach to Bitcoin and crypto assets, and sort of investing your time in those things. This is really just a local group where we're trying to spread awareness and help each other out with the learning. So, I can close it up there. I did want to stop and ask. We had a couple folks join, Mary and Brandy and Ivan, thanks for joining. If anybody has any kind of questions about what I talked about, now is definitely a good time. No questions.
Hey, thanks a lot. So here's a question I was kind of trying to figure out. Because what's the real primary difference between Bitcoin and like all these other coins that we're hearing about? Like, what's the defining difference between what Bitcoin is and all these other coins that are just, they get a lot of attention?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the difference?
That's a great question. So Ken, so basically, because Bitcoin is designed to be a money system, basically any of the coins that have any other use case besides money, just can't possibly have the underlying economic value, whether it's smart contracts or being an NFT platform, whatever that other coin's sort of value prop is. If it's not to be the hardest money on earth, which Bitcoin is, then it doesn't have inherent economic value. Now, maybe that other coin says, well, I'm going to be the next Bitcoin. Well, my answer to that would be, the digital scarcity phenomenon that Bitcoin, the invention of Bitcoin is the first digital scarce asset, and that was a one-time phenomenon. So all these other coins are basically speculative, inflationary attacks on Bitcoin, because whatever they're trying to do with their quote unquote digital scarcity, they could easily do on Bitcoin. So what I usually say to people is like, well, is there somewhere in the Lightning network that they're working on that sort of smart contract? And the answer is often yes. Or is there anonymity features like, Monero is one that people talk about. And that's something that Bitcoin is constantly working. So any possible use case that one of these other coins has is like, okay, well, so why are they not using Bitcoin for their token or store of value? And the answer is usually because the founders of these tokens or alternative currencies are sitting on a giant stack of so-and-so coin, and they need you to buy it so that they can buy groceries for their families and things like that. And it's really kind of sad that these a lot of these developers get exploited by these projects, because if you look at the market cap of these other coins versus the value of Bitcoin, you will see that they are almost all trending downwards, including Ethereum, including XMR, including Cardano. All of these coins are trending downwards in their value against Bitcoin. So, I would say not only is, so that's one difference. And you'll also see, like, folks who are passionate about Bitcoin kind of get upset about it because, like I mentioned, it is that sort of speculative, inflationary attack on Bitcoin. It's not as simple as just saying, well, they're trying to improve. No, not generally. They're trying to grow their own wealth at the expense of just telling the truth about what digital scarcity is. So I don't know, does that answer your question? Is there more I can kind of illuminate?
Yeah, that's kind of helpful. I'm just maybe like, so like the way I understand it is there's only 21 million Bitcoins in existence. Is that true?
Yeah.
Like that? Okay.
Yes. No, that's not true. There are not 21 million yet, but there will only be just under 21 million. So Bitcoin has a very credible limited issuance. There is basically no way to affect that network wide. So like, let's say you want that to be 42 million, you're not going to get that through. It also has a fixed known supply schedule. It also is not centralized in that you can't go to somebody and say, you know what, we should make change X, Y, or Z. You would have to go through so many layers of people that if that's not conducive to the moneyness of Bitcoin over time, you're never going to get it changed. which means no government can come to a small dev team and say, we'd really like you to do something for us. There's no centralized party that controls Bitcoin. And then Bitcoin also has the largest computer network on the planet securing it, which makes it very hard for people to attack Bitcoin.
Yeah, the hash difficulty there is a critical thing that Ivan mentions, because if you look at the sort of the hash power, that computer network that is defending the money that lives in Bitcoin, and we're talking about exahashes versus with Ethereum, it's like terahashes. So
it doesn't even necessarily matter what prefix you put on that. There are billions and billions of dollars worth of equipment securing that network that somebody decided to invest the capital in, and they believe that much in that network.
Correct. Yeah. So how else can we answer that kind of question? So Ken, you're talking about the fixed supply cap, and yes, there will only ever be slightly less than 21 million Bitcoins, as Ivan is saying. And so, a lot of these coins, like even Ethereum, if you look at the supply cap, it just doesn't exist because there is no fixed supply of Ethereum. And sort of the whole point of Bitcoin is to be that deflationary currency. And the only way for that to happen is for there to be a hard cap on an asset like you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah. Does that go
also, for example, Ethereum does not have a known issuance. In that, there's currently EIPs out there where they're talking about changing the miner rewards and changing the issuance schedule of Ethereum. That would be anathema to Bitcoin, because everybody who has already spent the money on mining hardware and everything, they got into it believing in that schedule, and they don't want it to change. In Ethereum, we're still playing with that. So that's what I mean by credibility.
Right. Okay, good. So that kind of leads me towards where, if I'm looking at this in ecosystem and, I'm buying Bitcoin because I like the scarcity, right? I like the limited fact that you can't dilute it and print another 40 million Bitcoins, right? But the concern I have with these other alternative coins is that if the creator of the coin can just issue as many coins as they want, then that kind of defeats the deflationary purpose I have with Bitcoin. Does that kind of make sense?
It definitely does. And that concerns a lot of people. The dev fund model or the pre-mine model that a lot of these coins have are such that somebody's telling you, we created something relatively magical, and because we created it, we deserve X% of whatever that float of coin is. And this is how Ethereum came to be. This is how a number of coins have come to be. And then there's a central treasury of those coins. And if you're inside the group that's getting to issue those coins and essentially trade those first coins for US dollars, you come out way ahead. In Bitcoin, it has always been open to all to go mine and compete with everybody else to get new coins.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Anybody else? Mary, I got your chat.
Hey, Eric.
Hey.
It's Tom. So you were talking about the bubble, and so it hasn't been as highly adopted as over the last year, really, with Bitcoin. And so when you see companies like Tesla, MicroStrategies, it's probably soon to be Apple and all these big companies putting billions of dollars into Bitcoin, do you feel like that stabilizes the bubble a little bit more, or gives it a base price now that Elon's in and Tim Cook's coming in and all those kind of things?
Yeah. So my thoughts are, can you see? You see this guy? I'm working on this post, but I'm basically looking at this guy's. Can you see my screen, Tommy?
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that we have somewhat of a floor here in the $50,000 area where we're at now. I mean, the fact that Bitcoin hit 50,000 last week and kind of bounced off that, to me, was very bullish. But I'm a permabull. I always think it's going to go up. So I'm probably like the last person that you want to ask for like a measured response on that one. But yeah, I would definitely say, I think that there's a wave coming, right? And this is one of the reasons why I feel obligated to tell people about it, whether or not that wave is that the price is going to go up, or that the wave is that people need Bitcoin for some other reason. And that could be a lot of reasons that you want to keep some of your wealth on something like a hardware wallet besides the number go up technology. But that fixed supply plus the fact that all these big boys are getting in the pool, to me indicates that the number go up is probably the primary reason why like folks need to start really thinking about making this a part of their investment for their future. Because if every other investment for your retirement that you have, you are measuring in US dollars, and those US dollars are depreciating rapidly versus Bitcoin, then a lot of my friends are going to get screwed. Right. So yeah, I mean, if say Bitcoin goes to $5 million this cycle, and none of my friends have any, and now it costs $100 for a loaf of bread. You know what I mean? Like that is definitely like within the realm of possibility here. Maybe there's a 1% chance of that happening, but yeah, I think Bitcoin has set a price for at least. So my if you want to hear my insane conspiracy theory is, Elon put a price floor in at 42,000 when he bought, because 42 is the answer to life, the universe, and everything, from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And Elon is a meme lord, and he bought so much coin between 36 and 42 that in order for the price to go below 42, it's going to take an act of God. Now, it doesn't mean that it can't happen. There could be a panic sell-off like we saw from the COVID crisis in March of last year, and it could go all the way down to 3,000 again, for all I know. But yeah, Tommy, I think your analysis there that there's a lot of big boys getting in is indicative to me that like my friends who are maybe not so wealthy can maybe front run some of that action, right?
So there is something definitely to corporate adoption. These guys don't mess around because they have to go through a lot of trouble to put different assets on their balance sheet and account for them and vet the custody and make sure that all their ducks are in a row to do this stuff. And personally, I would say I'm most bullish on news like insurance companies that are 200 years old putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet, because those guys are like Warren Buffett. When they pick up assets like that, they don't intend to disgorge them tomorrow. So it's a very bullish signal to see these corps start to get in. Another aspect of that is that Michael Saylor, the guy who runs MicroStrategy, has been out there orange pilling corps now for the last 3 months or so.
This is a April Fool's thing, isn't it?
I assume that is, yes. You might find on their, Mass Life.
Like he says, they have 21 million Bitcoin. Berkshire Hathaway has bought all the Bitcoin.
There you go. Berkshire got it.
Impossible.
Anyway, the point is, if people run around talking about strong hands, corporate treasuries, they make rules for when they buy and when they sell things like this, and then they follow those rules because that's how they run. So they are very strong hands in this market, and I love seeing them come to it.
But yeah, I'm very excited about that too. And it also, I was talking to my dad about this. It gives the boomers kind of an opportunity to just invest in these companies and get Bitcoin exposure without needing to learn how to do stuff like hold the private keys, because it's hard. Pro tip, it's not really that hard, but